NBA for a decade and a half, 17 as a coach. New Orleans, Cleveland, Lakers. Byron Scott is joining us. All right, let's get right to it. I was surprised. I think we all understood LeBron and AD will work. Danny Green, they're smart. They're veteran players. But it worked on the defensive end quickly. I thought it worked on the offensive end quickly. Were you surprised at the swiftness of how it all molded together?
I was. I think anytime you put a brand new team together and you bring superstars together, the chemistry sometimes takes a lot more time than people expect. This team seemed to really gel and mush together well early. And I think a lot of people in LA were a little surprised by that, because when you have an Anthony Davis, you have a LeBron James, you have two of the best players at their positions in this league. You throw in a Danny Green, a veteran guy. You got a Rondo. So you have all these other different pieces and this other different ingredients to the pie that you have to put in there, and you got to see if it's all going to work. And I thought for the Lakers at the beginning, it was going to be till February before they really started to gel as a basketball team. So I was really excited and surprised that they gelled so early.
Are you worried that as LeBron takes control of the basketball, I got nothing against Caruso, but I've never seen him in big spots. There's a big difference between the NBA playoffs, where the refs swallow whistles. He's a smaller guard. It's very physical. And LeBron, are you concerned at all that LeBron would have to log a lot of minutes in his 17th year on both ends, kind of running the show?
A little bit, Colin. I still think they have one piece missing. And this is a guy who I love. Drafted this guy in New Orleans. He's free right now. He said he was going to retire. Was Darren Collison.
Darren Collison surprisingly retired.
Yes, surprisingly is right, because I thought he still has a lot left in the tank. He is a guy that I think could fit in extremely well with the Lakers on both ends of the floor. And the one thing about Darren, he makes outside shot, doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He's very good with the basketball. He can run a basketball team. But on the defensive end, he guards people. And I think that's the ingredients right now that they're missing with the Lakers. That LeBron has to have the ball in his hands so often and so much that at the end of the day, you hope this doesn't wear him down when the playoffs comes. And if it does, then we'll all be sitting here pissed off about it.
Well, Collison has a reputation as a smart guy who's humble. He can fit in with stars. He's like Victor Oladipo. You're not getting a lot of nonsense. You're just getting a grown-up.
Right. And you're getting a guy that understands how to play the game of basketball.
Right. Let me shift to the Clippers, who I think are deeper than the Lakers, but depth can be tricky. There are nights I've watched the Clippers, and they got 10 guys who can ball. Byron, that's almost counterintuitive to what you coaches want. Could I make an argument Doc's going to have to trim that roster in the postseason, and that's not going to make – not everybody's going to be happy getting less minutes. Do they have too many players?
Well, I think the great thing about what Doc has done with this Clipper team is that he's played 10 guys on a regular basis. When you get to the playoffs and you get to those big games, especially Western Conference Finals and in the finals, you don't want to all of a sudden start doing things that you hadn't been doing in the regular season. So I would say if this has been working all this time and it works all the way throughout the playoffs, you stick with it. I did the same thing in New Jersey. We had a 9-man rotation. Everybody said, well, you might have to cut that down to 8. No, the 9 worked extremely well during the regular season. It worked just as well in the playoffs. So I don't necessarily think, because he has a 10-man rotation right now, that during the playoffs that this is going to have to be cut down to 8. Those 10 guys understand their roles. This team has no agenda whatsoever but to win basketball games and try to win a championship. I think these guys understand what they're supposed to do every single night. And if you have that, then some of those guys will be even more fresh when the end of the season comes.
It's funny. For years, when Kobe first broke into the league, he sounded like Michael. But I saw occasional similarities to their game. I thought Kobe was a better long-range shooter. I thought Kobe was a better passer and ball handler. I thought Michael was better on the defensive end, a little bit stronger. But you played, in the Michael era. Kawhi's the first player I've seen. Hand size, mid-range game. There's a Spider-Man quality where he may not look strong, but he puts his hand on you. He pushed Giannis around the floor. I do see some MJ Kawhi. Do you?
It's a very quiet MJ Kawhi. He's just a totally different athlete. But from a standpoint of being able to guard people, take people out of their game completely on the defensive end, strong as he is, like you said, a lot of people didn't think MJ was that strong. I'm here to tell you, he was extremely strong, wiry strong.
I had a lot of players tell me that.
Wiry strong. Kawhi is basically like that as well. You know, he's a big guy at 6'7", 6'8", 230. He's a little bit bigger than MJ. His handle is not as great as MJ, but he's not as fancy.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? He's not as fancy.
He's not the artist.
He's not the artist that MJ was when he played the game of basketball. But when you look at what these guys bring to the table on both ends of the floor, a lot of similarities.
So Houston's obviously very talented. James Harden is one of the best ISO acts I've ever seen. He's not as athletic as Kobe, probably a better pure shooter. Kobe's a little more vertical, a better athlete, and Kobe again had no stock moves. Kobe just kind of, he's the blank canvas.
Kobe was just Kobe.
Kobe was
he got to where he wanted to go.
And Kobe's a better defensive player.
Yes.
But I do worry about Harden. I've seen him, that game that he plays, I just don't think, Byron, by June you can have the ball in your hands for that long. And when I watch Harden go 1 for 17, I've seen him look tired.
Yeah.
What would you do if you're D'Antoni, who's always been kind of a passive-aggressive guy? He's not a barker and a screamer.
Right.
How would you diplomatically tell James, dish more, less ball-centric?
Oh, man. I think, first of all, you got to get the ball out of his hands a little bit more. You got to cut his minutes down a little bit more because, like you said, he's looking tired now, and we're in the game 44, 45, 46. These guys still got 30-plus games left and the playoffs. So you want James Harden to be as fresh as possible. The one thing we do know, James doesn't put out the greatest effort on the defensive end, so he's allowed to save a lot of that energy for the offensive
But he
end.
won't miss games, Byron. He plays every night.
Games. I understand that, too. He's got an old-school mentality that if he's not hurt, he's going to play. I understand that. But to lessen his load, sometimes you got to get the ball out of his hands. And you got to, let him be the decoy every now and then. 1 for 17, I don't think I shot 17 threes in 3 games, let alone 1 for 17 in 1 game.
And you were the Laker three-point shooter.
Right. So, and like you said, Mike has to be a little diplomatic about it as far as making him understand that for the betterment of this basketball team, sometimes we need you to be the decoy, and maybe Russ takes over for a certain period of time just to keep him fresh and just to get him to the point that when the playoffs start, hopefully he's there again.
I think the story of the year in the NBA is Oklahoma City. They trade away Westbrook.
Right.
It's a bunch of kids, Steven Adams and Chris Paul.
Right.
Chris is having an unbelievable year. Is there sometimes 2 minutes left of freedom in knowing, listen, we got 2 guys who I want shooting, and it's young kids. When I watch OKC, bits and pieces, they play so hard. Did you ever coach a team that you knew had a ceiling, but you loved coaching them?
Yeah, my New Orleans team with Chris Paul. They just played, like you said, they played hard every single night. There was no excuses. They went out there and they laid it on the line. They wanted to win for all the right reasons. They played together. They played for each other. And when you look at this OKC team now, you're looking at the same things. A Chris Paul team that plays together, care about each other. They want to win. And I think one of the things for them is they got a chip on their shoulder. Everybody counted them out when they made all these trades. Chris Paul is going, downhill. He's at the end of his career. He's not as good as he used to be. This team won't make the playoffs. I think Chris Paul and Donovan have used all these things to hype this team up, to get them ready to play each and every game that they're being doubted. And I think that's why you see OKC playing great basketball at this particular time of the season. I would not be surprised to see them in the playoffs.
By the way, you got along very well with Chris Paul. Some say it's difficult. Why did it work?
I think mutual respect. I respected him as a point guard and the things that he brought to the table. I kind of handed the keys over to him.
You did.
You're earlier in his career. I think the fact that I played in the NBA and won championships game, he respected that. And the fact that, Colin, I was always honest with him. I was straight up.
What, were you tough
honest
on him?
Yes. Yeah, I was tough on him, but he's one of those guys that wanted to be pushed. He wanted to be coached. And you got to love superstars like that.
Yeah. It's been a great story for them.
It really has.
I
don't think it's not going to be a good ending to it. I think they're going to make the playoffs, and it's going to be fun to watch.
By the way, I watch Utah a lot because I occasionally go skiing in the winter. Keep your eye on Utah.
Oh, and Denver.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you know what you figure out when you watch Utah live? The big guy from France, Rudy Gobert.
Yes.
He is so good.
He is a stud. Rudy is a stud, and that was a diamond in the rough that they found, and they brought him along fantastically, nice and slow, really developed him, and he is one of the best centers in the NBA.
Great seeing you.
You too, always.
Byron Scott, former Laker. Folks, Feel better, M-Drive. MDriveForMen.com. The code is HERD. 20% off your first order. More lean muscle, more energy, boost healthy testosterone levels. See you tomorrow. You know, when I used to host a show with Jason Whitlock, sometimes I worried about Jason because this is why Marcellus is so important for the show. Jason gets very emotional, and Marcellus is a calming influence. So when the Chiefs get into the Super Bowl, I'm like, oh, boy, this is going to be a rough couple of weeks. Marcellus, you know, Jason likes to occasionally bet on football games.
You think? I think I've noticed that over the years.
Can we talk him off the ledge just a little bit, Jason?
Talk me off the ledge. What ledge am I on? The Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, first time in 50 years. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
It doesn't matter what happens from this point.
We're going to be right there, a little too close for comfort in terms of the gambling aspect, and Jason putting it all on the line. So
now I do think, Jason, Andy Reid, Mahomes, the MVP level, all-time iconic talent. I think the pressure's on Kansas City, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing, actually, and it's going to bring out a great performance from Andy Reid. I think great performers embrace pressure, and Andy Reid, pressure makes diamonds, and Andy Reid's about to turn into a diamond this week and come out with his, or in 2 weeks, come out with his greatest game plan ever.
Well, I don't think so because of the pressure in the first 2 playoff games. They started off slow because of the anxiety and the fact that they were the favorites. And down 31-7 in 2 combined first quarters. So that's a problem.
They should have ended the game there.
Right.
You know, I will say this, though. I kind of feel like San Francisco's D-line gets all the love. I think the O-line for San Francisco is wildly underrated. You can argue they have 2 Pro Bowl tackles.
I think Chris Jones is going to put a clown suit on San Francisco's offensive line, and the Chiefs' offensive line is underrated.
Yeah, got time
I like them apples.
Look, I can smell that bet coming. Marcellus talking.